Why do some memories never seem to leave us? How can a single look, a tone of voice, or even a smell instantly drag us back to moments we wish we could forget? What if our childhood wasn't just a distant chapter in our past, but a shadow silently shaping every choice, every fear, and every relationship we have today? Childhood trauma isn't just an unpleasant memory. It's an invisible scar etched into both mind and body, shaping how we see the world and ourselves. As psychiatrist and trauma specialist Bessel van der Kolk famously said, "The body keeps the score." Our experiences don't just affect our thoughts. They leave physical imprints on our very biology. If you've ever wondered why certain patterns repeat in your life, why your reactions sometimes feel out of proportion, or why happiness always seems just out of reach, maybe it's time to look back. Not to relive the pain, but to finally understand it. In this video, we'll explore how childhood trauma takes shape, how it impacts both the mind and the body, and most importantly, how we can begin to free ourselves from it. When we hear the word trauma, most of us imagine extreme events, wars, natural disasters, unavoidable tragedies. But childhood trauma often hides in less obvious places: indifference, silence from those who are supposed to protect us, or words that made us doubt our worth. Childhood trauma occurs when an experience is simply too overwhelming for a child's heart and mind to handle. It can come from physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, neglect, abandonment, or even from growing up in an unstable home where parents, trapped in their own unresolved wounds, can't provide safety or love. And here's the cruelest part. What hurts a child isn't only what happened to them, but also what should have happened and never did. Imagine a child growing up where love is conditional, where affection always comes with criticism, where silence speaks louder than words of comfort. That child may carry no visible scars, but inside, the wounds run deep. As Freud once said, "Repressed emotions never die. They are buried alive and will return later in uglier ways." Trauma doesn't vanish. It hides, transforms, and resurfaces in unexpected forms. Some children grow up anxious, constantly on edge, always bracing for the worst as if danger could strike at any moment. Others learn to disconnect completely from their emotions, becoming adults who can't even name what they feel, because it was never safe to feel in the first place. Some seek obsessive control over every aspect of their lives, trying to guarantee they'll never feel powerless again. Others unconsciously recreate the same patterns, repeating the pain of their childhood, because as painful as it was, it's the only kind of love they ever knew. And that's the great tragedy of childhood trauma. It doesn't just mark the past, it hijacks the future. Without realizing it, we carry the fears of childhood into our adult relationships. We become adults who never feel good enough, who fear intimacy, who sabotage themselves without knowing why. We can spend an entire lifetime running from something we can't even name. But there's one thing we must remember. Trauma is not destiny. What happened to us may have shaped who we are, but it doesn't have to define who we will become. The first step is to see it. The second is to understand it. And the third, the hardest of all, is to believe that healing is possible. Because it is. So, how exactly does childhood trauma affect the mind and body? If the body keeps the score, what does that truly mean for us? The answer could completely change how you see yourself. Childhood trauma isn't just a painful memory locked away in the mind. It becomes part of the body itself, embedded in the biology of the one who lived it. It's no exaggeration to say that a difficult past can physically shape a developing brain, influencing every thought, reaction, and choice in the future. A child growing up in an unstable or threatening environment is always on high alert. Their nervous system adapts to survive, constantly activating the fight or flight response. That means even when there's no real danger, Their body reacts as if there is. The heart races, muscles tighten, breathing becomes short and shallow. And the worst part? This biological programming doesn't just fade with time, it can stay active for decades, turning into chronic anxiety, panic attacks, insomnia, or even autoimmune disorders. Neuroscience has already shown that childhood trauma directly affects the brain's structure. The amygdala, the part that regulates fear, becomes hyperactive. The hippocampus, responsible for processing memories, can actually shrink. And the prefrontal cortex, the area that helps us make rational decisions, becomes less active. This explains why traumatized adults often wrestle with overwhelming emotions or struggle to trust others. And it's not just the mind that suffers. The body also carries the marks of what happened. As psychiatrist and researcher Bessel van der Kolk explains, trauma isn't just a story about the past. It lives in the present, in the body, in the breath, in the way we react to the world. Many adults who lived through childhood trauma develop chronic pain with no clear medical cause, digestive issues, or constant fatigue. Trauma finds a way to express itself through the body. That's why telling someone to just get over it completely misses the point. This kind of pain doesn't dissolve with time or by sheer willpower. It needs to be processed, understood, and released. But there is hope. The human brain is plastic. It can rewire itself. With the right tools, therapy, emotional regulation techniques, and reconnecting with the body, many of trauma's effects can be reversed. The story of someone who suffered in childhood doesn't have to end in suffering. Pain can transform into strength. Wounds can become gateways to growth. But how does trauma keep repeating across generations? If we grew up in pain, how can we stop that pain from spreading to those who come after us? Childhood trauma doesn't only affect the one who experienced it. It often ripples through generations like a silent shadow. The children of traumatized parents often grow up in dysfunctional patterns, carrying forward stories that didn't even begin with them. If no one chooses to be hurt, why do so many end up unconsciously passing that pain on? When a child grows up where love is conditional, where their feelings are dismissed or ignored, they learn early on that the world isn't safe. Instead of developing healthy self-esteem and trust, they adapt to survive. Some become perfectionists, believing that if they're flawless, they'll finally deserve love. Others shut down entirely, repressing emotions to avoid the pain of abandonment. And some repeat what they saw, carrying the same wounds into their future relationships. The cycle of trauma continues because children don't just learn from what they're told. They learn from what they experience. A father who never received affection may struggle to show it. A mother who was constantly criticized may project her insecurities onto her children. As Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Science confirms this too. Research in epigenetics shows that trauma can even be inherited biologically, altering the way certain genes are expressed. This means the impact of a painful childhood can echo into the lives of descendants, shaping their sensitivity to stress, their mental health, and even their risk for certain illnesses. But the cycle doesn't have to continue. Awareness of our own story is the first step to breaking the chain of pain. By recognizing harmful patterns and seeking healing through therapy, self-reflection, or reshaping old beliefs, we can change not just our own lives, but those of future generations. Trauma can be inherited, but so can healing. Breaking the cycle takes courage, but it is one of the most powerful acts of transformation. Overcoming childhood trauma doesn't mean erasing the past. It means learning to carry it differently. It doesn't mean denying the pain, but integrating it, giving it new meaning. The good news is, despite the deep scars trauma may leave, the human brain is capable of repair. What was wounded can be healed. What was broken can be rebuilt. The first step toward healing is awareness. As long as a wound remains hidden in the dark, it continues to shape our behavior without us realizing it. But once we begin to see the patterns that trap us, the fear of rejection, the constant need for approval, the struggle to trust others, we gain the chance to break free. That's the moment when pain stops being an invisible weight and becomes a doorway to self-discovery. Psychotherapy is one of the most powerful tools for rewriting our story. Cognitive behavioral therapy helps restructure negative beliefs about ourselves and the world. EMDR, eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing can reduce the emotional intensity of traumatic memories. Somatic approaches that reconnect mind and body help release trauma stored physically. As trauma expert Gabor Mate reminds us, unless we deal with the pain of our childhood, we will spend our lives trying to numb it. But healing doesn't only happen in a therapist's office. Small daily practices can rebuild emotional safety. Mindfulness and meditation teach the brain to slow down and step out of constant alert mode. Physical exercise helps release tension and lowers stress hormones. Creative outlets like writing or painting give us a safe space to express emotions we can't always put into words. Another essential part of healing is reconnecting with the body. Survivors of childhood trauma often learn to disconnect from their emotions and sensations as a defense mechanism. But relearning to listen to the body, to notice anxiety signals and allow ourselves to feel, can be a transformative step. Most importantly, healing happens through safe relationships. Trauma often teaches us not to trust others, to see vulnerability as dangerous. But as we meet people who treat us with respect, kindness, and validation, we start to rebuild our worldview. Every healthy relationship becomes proof that love can be different. Healing childhood trauma is a journey, not a final destination. There are easy days and hard days, steps forward and steps back. But with each small step, with each new understanding, something inside us begins to reorganize. The past may have shaped us, but it doesn't have to define who we are from here on out. True freedom begins the moment we stop running from our story and choose instead to rewrite it with our own hands. Childhood trauma can leave deep scars, shaping how we see the world, others, and even ourselves. It teaches us too early that we're not enough, that love is unstable, that danger can lurk anywhere, and often we carry those lessons our whole lives without realizing they no longer belong to us. But here's a truth we rarely hear. What happened to you does not have to define who you are. Your past may have been marked by pain, but your future is still yours to shape. Trauma is not a sentence. It is not destiny. It's a painful experience, yes, but not a permanent one. If psychology, neuroscience, and even philosophy agree on anything, it's this. Human beings are capable of transformation. The brain can rewire itself. The body can heal. The mind can find new meaning in its own story. As Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist Viktor Frankl wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." Healing from childhood trauma doesn't mean erasing the past. It means learning to live with it without letting it dictate every decision, every thought, every fear. It means looking inward, acknowledging what still hurts, while also recognizing that there is more than pain inside us. There is strength, resilience, and enormous potential for growth. The path of healing isn't easy, but it is possible. More than that, it's necessary because no one deserves to spend their entire life running from something that's already over. We cannot change the past, but we can change the present. And from the present, we can rebuild the future. So the question is, are you willing to take the first step? If you've made it this far, it likely means something in this message resonated with you. Maybe because you've lived through something similar. Maybe because you know someone who carries these invisible scars. Or maybe because, Deep down, we all have unresolved wounds that shape who we are, even when we try to ignore them. Talking about trauma isn't easy. Listening to it can be even harder. But there's something powerful in the simple act of acknowledging our own pain, something many people spend a lifetime avoiding. Finding the courage to look inward, to face what has been silent for so long, is the very first and most important step toward healing. And if there's one thing I want you to take away, it's this. You are not alone. Whatever your story, there are ways to rewrite it. There are ways to break the cycle, to recover what was lost, to find new meaning in what once hurt you. Pain may be part of your journey, but it doesn't have to be your destiny. Thank you for giving your time to this conversation. And if this message spoke to you, I invite you to keep exploring. There are other videos here that dive deeper into the mind, the emotions, and the path toward healing. Click on one and continue your journey of self-discovery.